Here is a wonderful Christmas trip story for you, titled Pure Joy. It was 2 years ago today that my precious 17-year-old granddaughter and I stepped on board an eastbound plane headed for Rome's Leonardo da Vinci Airport. Here is a picture of Lilly just after we deplaned. A magical 2-week grandmother-granddaughter Italian trip together for Christmas and New Year's. What an adventure was about to begin for the two of us. The feeling of excitement was prevalent inside of me. I could have turned inside out. I was so excited about being with Lilly overseas, having her all to myself. What a big joy that was for this grandmother. Many years earlier, I had taken her mother to Rome for Christmas, so I thought it would be a lovely experience for Lilly to also see all the places where her mother had been all those years ago. So after we got our bags, we headed for the hotel, and there we had a recommendation from the hotel people, a really good Italian restaurant. Well, they're all Italian, right? Right close to our hotel. But the food was absolutely delicious. So our first meal in Rome was, well, très magnifique. Well, that's French. I should know those words in Italian. Anyway, this post will feature just our 2 days of Christmas Eve and Christmas Day in Rome. But one thing before starting I have to say is that the weather was cloudy and cold when we arrived, but the very next morning when we woke up, I am not exaggerating, for the next 2 weeks that Lilly and I were in Italy, and that was included Rome, Florence, Pisa, Cinque Terre, and Venice, there was hardly a cloud in the sky. Azure blue followed us everywhere we went. It was an incredible stroke of luck to have such good weather. Christmas Eve, we woke up and we were off and running. The first stop was a tour of the Vatican. The Vatican is a fascinating place to visit, whether you are Catholic or not. My granddaughter is Catholic, but I am not. The history and riches inside this city, the smallest in the world, are just too immense to even describe here. Our tour gave Lilly an idea of the enormous wealth and treasures inside the Vatican complex. Each inch is covered with statues, mosaics, tapestries, frescoes. I mean, it's truly mind-boggling, the artwork. And it's absolutely exquisite. Speaking of exquisite, the highlight, of course, was the Sistine Chapel, Michelangelo's masterpiece. We stood in silence observing this historic and amazing artwork surrounding us on all the walls and on the ceiling. It was a great experience in art history for Lilly, and of course I absolutely loved being inside the Sistine Chapel again. As we left, I explained to Lilly about the colorfully dressed Swiss guards and how they have been protecting the Pope for centuries, and we would see them later that night at the midnight mass. After lunch, we set off for the Colosseum. A tour of the interior gave my interested granddaughter a bit of history about this famous structure. Quite horrifying were the bloody contests held here, but an important part of Roman history. After the tour was over, I took advantage of a picture-taking session with my beautiful granddaughter, who looks more like a model than anything else. And, of course, the picture was enhanced by having that ancient structure, the Colosseum, as the backdrop. Then it was time to head for our hotel, take a shower, dress up, and be ready to depart for midnight mass at St. Peter's Basilica. We were told by the nuns who gave us our tickets we should line up around 3:45 for entrance into Basilica at 9:45, which is exactly what we did. Apparently, they sell way more tickets than there are seats, so if you're not there early, you could be out of luck. We stood and we stood and we stood. It was not too bad, though, because we had fun talking to all the people surrounding us. Even some excitement when a couple of men around 6 p.m. tried to sneak into line. The police were summoned. They were hauled off to the back of the line, which extended for blocks, which you'll see in a picture, the next picture. At just before 9 p.m., just before they opened the gates, a whole flock of doves was flying, I guess they let them loose right over St. Peter's Square. Talk about a spectacular sight. That was really beautiful. And sort of had a religious feel to it, too, those beautiful white doves. Gorgeous. Okay, so here's the line from where we were looking backwards. So those people that were hauled off, well, they probably didn't make it into midnight mass, would be my guess. So once the gates opened, Lily rushed ahead. Whoops, that picture's out of place. Rushed ahead, and she got us 2 seats nearest the front of the basilica she could. And I thought the seats she got were great. And then we sat there and watched the procession begin. When the service started, we watched the cardinals, priests, the Pope himself, and dignitaries preceded by children carrying flowers and dignitaries along with a group of Swiss guards. We listened to the service and conducted in Italian. Of course, we couldn't understand a word they were saying. Nonetheless, what a special experience it was to share with my precious granddaughter sitting together on Christmas Eve at midnight mass at one of the most famous churches in the entire world. And it is a cute picture of the children coming down the aisle from all different nationalities from all over the world. They were just darling. Lily and I were surprised that during the 1.5-hour service there was only one Christmas carol sung. That was Adeste Fidelis. Nevertheless, it was a joy to be at midnight mass at historic St. Peter's, a church service that Lily and I sat and shared, and an experience neither one of us will forget. And here, as you can see in this picture, Lily is taking a picture of the Pope, of Pope Francis, as he's exiting after the service. After the Mass was over, Lily and I headed out to tour around St. Peter's Square, which looked particularly spectacular at night with its Christmas decorations and beautiful lighting. After a picture-taking session, the two of us headed off to a little cafe to have a midnight snack. Christmas Day, we arose early so that we could make our way over to the Vatican to hear the Pope's Christmas Day message. I had done this with my daughter Wendy all those years ago, and I really wanted Lily to see it. So off we went. Again, we couldn't understand the message in Italian, but it is a historic event. I remember when Lily's mom and I listened to Pope John Paul II, we could understand his message because he gave it in like 7 or 8 languages. So that was a very special thing for us to be I'm getting tongue-tied, to be able to understand what his beautiful message to the world was that particular Christmas in the late 80s. After our time at the Vatican, we took a stroll around Rome. The weather continued to be absolutely gorgeous. We visited the famous Spanish steps, which are pictured here. Then we returned to our hotel, but not before visiting Piazza Navona. And we also passed by the Hassler Hotel, where we would have dinner that very night. No surprise, the Hotel Hassler's restaurant service was excellent. As requested, our table was situated in front of a picture window with a splendid view of old Rome at night. Oh, I just can't even describe what an absolutely gorgeous sight that is. So here we are, my precious granddaughter and I, having our Christmas dinner. And I must say, it was an elegant affair. I mean, the hotel is elegant and first class, but the restaurant had completely changed since the days when I was there with my daughter. It was way more chic. The other restaurant was more, I don't know, had a much more inviting, friendly atmosphere. But anyway, it was great having such a fabulous view. Our Christmas dinner was so high-end gourmet that neither Lily nor I liked the food much. Way too fancy for our taste. What a bummer that was. There were many courses. Yeah, they sure were. And they were all small portions, as you can see some of them right here. We called them bird-like. But adding insult to injury, we didn't really like what we tasted too much. Too bad. And to add insult to injury, the meal was hideously expensive. Perhaps the Hassler's gourmet dining experience was worth it for old time's sake, but very disappointing to say the least. The wonderful part was having Lily next to me, along with the beautiful the nighttime skyline of Rome. A very, very special Christmas dinner. When our trip ended, what was the best reward for this Grammy? Lily said to me, "Someday I want to return to Italy with my own children." Oh, those were just magical, a magical combination of sentiments. That was a magical sentiment to me. Our Italian Christmas tradition, which began all those years ago with her mother, will continue with future great-grandchildren. Now, how wonderful is that? From the moment we arrived until the moment we departed, there was never a dull moment. This Grammy was in absolute seventh heaven the entire time. And as it turned out, Lily was absolutely the very best traveling companion. She was so much fun to be with. Oh, how I enjoyed every minute. So no matter what the future holds, Lily and I will always have forever and ever the memories of our magical trip to Rome, Italy on Christmas 2019.